Here we are, and we are live, and we're live on the webinar as well. Okay, I just want to welcome everybody to the call. Whoever hops in, then we can definitely reintroduce ourselves if possible. But this is Kick It with Johnny Live. We are back. I'm so excited to be back. I'm so excited to have our first guest, which is Mr. Rob Mount, who plays for Lou Gramm. And man, he's got a lot going on and a lot cooking, and I had the opportunity and the honor to actually hang out with Rob this past year, my lovely wife and we got to see Rob play live with Lou, and it was awesome. It was a high energy show. Rob did an amazing solo, and he was a great host as well to myself and my wife as well, and we got to meet Rob and his lovely wife Louise. And what an amazing day for us. And, I'm very, very happy to finally get him back on the show, because we were trying it before and it just didn't work out. But now we got him back again, and I'm excited to be doing this again. And, I just want to welcome you to the show, Rob. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule and being on with us. And, we just want to hear more about you, what you've done. How did you even get to this spot? I mean, how did it come up, in you playing drums in the Mount household back in the day?
Drumming and all that stuff. I did what most kids did probably. You bang on the pots of pans around the house until your parents get sick of you beating on that and say, maybe we ought to pursue that and buy them a drum set. So, I used to, I had like this Disney book that was like this thick. I'd put it on a chair, and that was like my snare drum for a while. And that I graduated to snare drum lessons from there when I was about 7. And I remember my first teacher, he had a real heavy German accent. And, he's like, first we played the snare drum, and then we would play the bass drum. And I was just like, oh, what the heck is this guy? I quit after one lesson. I was like, oh, man, I don't know about this. But I kept banging on stuff, and then I saw Kiss on Paul Lynde's Halloween special. 76, I guess that would have been, and that blew me away. I was like, holy cow, what the hell is this? So ever since then, I've been playing drums. My parents bought me a basic kit around then, to get you started. And that snare drum, actually, I was showing you early before we went on the air, was actually part of that kit. It's an old 65 Ludwig snare.
Oh my God, that's beautiful.
Yeah, and so, you do the garage band stuff. I started taking lessons. I played in all my school bands from grammar school, high school, percussion ensembles. I went to the Eastman School of Music here in Rochester when I was going to high school, and I took all that stuff, concert band, percussion ensemble, music theory. And then I went to Nazareth College. I studied music education, did all the same stuff, concert band, percussion ensemble, blah, 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 blah. And I didn't finish it. I decided I didn't want to be a school band director. That wasn't where I wanted to go, and I wanted to rock and roll. So.
Wow, cool. Absolutely, man. So tell me about your time at Eastman. What do you think was one of the biggest things that you learned from going to that school, and what's the biggest like takeaway from that?
Well, it's such a prestigious music school. I mean, it's known throughout the world, and the teacher I had there, her name was Ruth Kahn. She was in the RPO, the Rochester Philharmonic, and she was a great teacher. I mean, she was serious, but she was cool. But, it's like anything that's old school when, we're the same age. Any of us that are kind of our age, even in regular school, your teachers, they weren't as politically correct. They weren't as, my little snowflake. I mean, they made sure you did your lesson. They made sure you weren't BSing them that, oh, yeah, I practiced. You know what I mean? You learn discipline from that. And that's the biggest takeaway I think I got, because, I went there for, it was either 3 or 4 years, I don't remember. And my level of reading and my level of discipline really was formulated there, So
right, definitely.
Yeah.
So how would I guess a lot of my students, the biggest thing is teaching them how to read music. I think reading music has got to be one of the most important things that they can learn as far as drumming goes, and as far as just learning music in general. As I just think, especially if they wanted to do other gigs, or if they were a hired gun, or if they were just had to do something where they needed to read a chart, even a jingle and things like that. Can you kind of elaborate on how important you feel that reading music is to the upcoming drummer or musician or somebody just trying to do more with their career?
Yeah. Well, there's two things I think that are really important to being a musician, no matter what instrument you play. And the first one, obviously, I think, like you just said, reading music, because can you get by not reading music? Sure. Have a lot of famous people made a career out of music, and they don't even know what scale they're playing or what rudiment they're playing? Yeah. But they're lucky, because by not being able to read music, you potentially can just, lose a gig, because a guy right next door to you can. You know what I mean? He can pick up on this. He can chart it out for himself, and bam, he's ready to go. You know what I mean? Take Kenny Aronoff. We were talking about him earlier. That's a guy who, if you know anything about Kenny Aronoff, he grew up doing orchestral stuff. He went to music school for music. I've heard that guy play amazing marimba solos, which nobody would even think that this guy could do. But the reason he works and the reason he can do so much, he goes, it ain't because I can remember all this stuff. I can't remember all this stuff. He goes, I got to listen to it and I chart it out. He goes, that's how I can play all these gigs. I can go from John Fogerty to this to that. And the guy's amazing. But it isn't because he's got a great memory. He charts it out. So you're immediately going to lose to a guy like that if the situation comes down to it. If you can't read music, or at least be able to, for your own purposes, write some notes out at least to help you hear something and then take note, you're at a big disadvantage. And then the next thing I would say, in addition to reading music, which I wish I could do, that I can't, is being able to sing, at least even background vocals. Because if you got a great drummer or a great musician, but you got the guy of equal caliber right next door to you that can sing, that guy's going to get the gig, So two things: be able to read music, be able to sing. Your chances of getting gigs are exponential,
Sure, definitely. Well, let's talk about the gig you have right now. How did it lead up to you getting the gig with Lou? Tell me what happened after school and what led you up to where you are.
Okay. All right. Well, short version. After school, I'm old, so there's been a few things, but after school, started playing locally, in all the clubs like everybody does. And after doing that for a couple of years, I landed in a band. I went from like a Bon Jovi type band who actually recorded a bunch of demos. It was actually some really good music, actually. But some guys that were from the neighborhood I didn't really know saw me do that, and they were putting a metal band together. And they're like, hey, you're a good drummer. Would you want to do this? So I hop in the car, and they're like, this is what we think we want to sound like. And they're popping in Pantera, which had just come out at that time. And I'm like, I'm playing Bon Jovi type material with my hair poofed out to this. And all of a sudden it's
Vinnie Paul.
Play this. So long story short, I did that. We recorded some demos. We actually got signed to Mausoleum Records. This would have been around the mid-'90s. And the deal fell through because they ended up giving all the money to Joey Belladonna from Anthrax. They ran out of money for us.
Nice.
And then the two guys I was with went on to play guitar for Overkill for years. So I got kind of left in the dust. At that point, I started a family, had a couple of kids, bought a house, still stayed with music, kind of laid low a little bit, but then an opportunity to record a record for a Japanese release came up towards the late 90s, a band called Thick as Thieves. So I did that. You can still get it on Amazon. That's kind of like a Dokken Extreme type of band. Mm-hmm. Really good stuff. A guy named John Hahn, who is our guitar player, has done a lot of instrumental records on Leviathan Records. So I did that. Then I played the Wacken Open Air Festival over Germany, which is like still probably the biggest hard rock metal festival out there, which is a big eye opener. I was in a band called Liege Lord, who had some albums out on Metal Blade Records, and they asked me to go over there and play the gig, so I did that. And then I was still playing locally too, and some of the guys in a local band that we had going, including Mike, our guitar player, and Andy, who's a keyboard player, were in a Foreigner tribute band. And Lou's nephew was our singer. And we ended up doing a benefit, and Lou came down and sang. And it was just such a great band. Little did we realize that exact band 10 years later would be the nucleus of his band later on. And so when he went solo, he initially had another band with his brothers and a couple other guys. And they all kind of left, went their way over time. AD got in, who's our current bass player. Mike, our guitar player, kind of whittled in. Then Lou's brother left, the drummer, and I came in. And, it's just because I knew everybody. We had all played together for 30 years. And it just was a natural progression of, well, he could do it. Well, he could do it, and here we are.
Wow, cool.
Kind of like the long, short version.
Yeah, definitely. So getting into the group, how was it working with Lou at the very beginning? Was it was it a my way or the highway thing from Lou, or did you guys all have your own input as to the way you wanted the show to go? I mean, because obviously you guys were playing a lot of Foreigner stuff, so this is something to where people who you're playing to want to hear all those hits, and they want to hear all their favorite Foreigner songs and things like that. Did you find that there was any pressure playing with Lou? What was he really expecting out of you guys when you guys got into the group?
Well, for me, when I came in at the same time as Scott Gilman, our sax guy, came in, and the other guys had already been there a few years. So when I came in, first, I had actually done a gig with Lou back in 2009 when his brother got sick. On 3 days' notice, they called me up and said, "Hey, can you come play a gig?" Huh. On 3 days' notice, we're playing in California, and me being in a Foreigner tribute band hardly had much to learn, right? Mm-hmm. So Lou, I don't know if he remembered that, but, it was like, good to meet you again, whatever. He's very low-key. He's the most low-key guy you'll ever meet. Doesn't have an air of rock star, superstar at all. So we just kind of started right in rehearsal. We started practicing. At the end of the first practice, after you get over wow, that's Lou Gramm. I'm playing, you know what I mean? So after that wore off, after a little while, I said to him, what do you think, Anything I could prove upon? Anything you liked, didn't like? It's great. He goes, the only thing is, that sloshy disco hi-hat part in the second half of Feels Like the First Time? Yeah. Don't do that. I've always hated that. Because I was trying to play it like the record.
Sure.
That was my thing. I mean, and my philosophy to the whole gig is try to stay faithful at least to the original Dennis Elliott spirit. Now, I don't play like Dennis Elliott. I throw my own stuff in there, but I pretty much play for the song. I'm not there to show off. It ain't my gig, They're not there to see me. So, for him to say that was kind of funny because I was trying to play it faithfully. I'm figuring that's what he wants.
Sure, definitely. I mean, as a drummer going to those shows, you're kind of listening for those types of things, and at least I am when I go to the show. I'm like, I can't wait to hear this little drum part, or I can't wait to hear him play this. So it's kind of funny that Lou was like, yeah, you just leave that one out.
Well, but that's how laid back he is, because he never would have just come out and told me that.
Yeah,
he would have. It wasn't until I asked him. You know what I mean? He wasn't going to. He didn't turn around and go, "Yeah, don't do that."
Yeah.
No, he's not that type of guy. He's laid back, and once in a while, and it's very rare, but I'll throw in a little lick. But I know, I want to play for the song, but every once in a while, I'll throw something in. He doesn't turn around and look at me and go, he's cool. He trusts us.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, well, you even have a solo spot. So how did that come about? Did he want a drum solo right at the beginning, or did that kind of evolve?
Well, what happens with that is because of Lou's condition, because, most people know that he got ill.
Yeah.
But he does need to take a break during the set, to just take a breather.
Sure.
And so, okay, drum solo, you know what I mean?
Right.
So his brother Ben always did a drum solo, and then when it was my turn, when I came along, it had kind of decreased from like a 4 or 5 minute drum solo, and then they were telling me, well, about a minute and a half or whatever. Okay, well, for a minute and a half, you're just going to go, brrr, you can't really plan a drum solo.
Right, you can't build it and whatever, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right, but as time went on, as the year went on, my first year, the drum solo got back to like 4 or 5 minutes because he wasn't getting much of a break,
Right.
So I'm like, okay. So after the first year, I we had the winter break, and I was holed up in my own practice place, and I'm like, I really got to come up with something, you know what I mean? Because as they kept expanding it, I just kept kind of winging it. I had a little bit of thought in my brain, but I never really sat down and figured out what I was going to do. So the drum solo of mine that's on my YouTube channel that you had posted yesterday or the day before is kind of the basis of what I do. I mean, it changes a little here and there. It's never the same thing twice, but that's kind of the basis of it.
Sure, definitely. I mean, it's tough for a drummer, especially when you don't have anything planned, to want to just take everything out of your arsenal and put it out there. But you know, it's tough to change gears though too. To go from one fill, like you want to just do this 2 in the hands, two on the feet, 4 in the hands, 2 in the feet stuff, and make it clear. But then you want to get into like a shuffle groove, and then you want to break into a Latin groove, whatever. I mean, drummers, we all have a bit of ADD where we just, oh my gosh, we got this and this going on, and you want to try to throw everything in the kitchen sink at the audience to say, hey, look what I know, kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think a lot of drummers need to plan their solos and say, okay, it's gonna have a high point, it's gonna have a lower point, it's gonna have a mid range, and then it's gonna have a finale at the end, and and whatever. So
that's it. And if you see any great drummer who does their solo, it's like constructing a song. You got your beginning, your beginning got to make an impact. So you're bam, but then eventually you got to bring it down a little bit, and then you finish strong. And probably the biggest compliment I ever got, since I went with that formula that I came up with for what my solo is now, is, we did a weekend with John Elefante, who was a singer in Kansas for a number of years. We did some shows, and he goes up to me after one of the shows in the bar. He's like, I didn't really like drum solos, but I liked yours because it was like a song, And I'm like, hey, cool, somebody gets it, and I appreciated that because that's what it was, But see, here's another thing too: is I videotape every show. I do a drum cam, or sometimes I'll do a band cam where I do everything. But I videotape every show, and to me, that's one of the biggest ways you can learn is watching yourself play after you've removed yourself from the equation. When the emotions aren't there, it's just you a couple days later watching it. You're all calm, objective.
Yes.
You sit back and you go, all right, that didn't work, but that was cool. Or I thought that was cool, but it really isn't cool. You know what I mean? It's, I learned a lot from recording. I bought a Zoom camera that a lot of guys are using, the Q2N. I think Todd Zuckerman uses it, and Dave Weckl uses it. A lot of guys use it. Mm-hmm. And it's great, And
now, do you hook the camera right to your stand? And it just...
Well, the first way, first of all, you can get a mic clip attachment. So you screw it into the tripod, and it goes right in the mic clip. And I just get a boom stand from somebody in the sound crew, and then just put it where I want it. And initially I started using it where I had a long USB cable into my laptop, and I would record it using software. I soon figured out, once my laptop broke down, I was stuck. I'm like, I want to record the next 2 shows. I went and bought a memory card and put it in the camera and actually recorded right to the memory card. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The quality was so much better because I must have lost a lot going up the USB cable to the computer.
Sure.
And another thing is that long cable caused a sync issue with the video and the audio. So I'd sit back and watch, and I'd see, and I hear whack, and I whack. And every time I hit the drum, the sound was like delayed a second.
Right.
Recording right to the memory card eliminated all that. So, little lesson for anybody who wants to do it: just record to a memory card in the camera.
Yeah, definitely. It sounds like you're gonna, you're just kind of defeating a little bit from, like the middleman. You're going from the cord to the computer. You're kind of I could see how that can lose some of the quality in your recording and the sound and all that stuff. So cool, yeah, it's a great tip. Now, as far as gear goes, I know that when you play some of these shows, you do have some backline gear. You've had a Yamaha kit. In fact, I think you had the Yamaha kit when I saw you in Rochester. But then you've had my favorite drums out there too. You've had a couple DW kits. How does that usually work? What do you really want to play or prefer to play? If you had your choice, tell us some of the gear that you use right now.
Okay. Well, my main kit, me personally, that I've had ever since I was a junior in high school, and I still have, is a Yamaha recording custom kit. And I love those drums. They're one of the most recorded drums ever. They sound amazing. And so my first request on backline is for Yamaha, just because
sure,
I know them, I love them. DW, though, I've played a number of DW kits when Yamaha's not available, and those drums, to me, sound just as good. So it's not a matter of really sound quality between the two. They both are amazing.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest thing I go for Yamaha is more for the hardware. I just like their hardware a little bit better. My ride cymbal I usually have pretty low.
Yeah.
I can get a Yamaha stand low enough where I prefer it. With the DW stands, not quite.
Yeah.
So it's just a little thing where with a Yamaha stand, I don't have to think about it. It's where I want it. With the DW, it's up a little higher, so immediately you start going. You know what I mean?
It's different.
Same thing with the seats. Sure. DW seats, great seats. I sit low, so I prefer to have like a Yamaha seat or something, because with DW, I'm up maybe half an inch.
Mm-hmm.
Most people would sit there and go, half an inch, who cares? Trust me, whenever you got to think about your gear in a gig, it's not good. You want to play. You don't want to be thinking about your stuff. So
sure,
that's why I use Yamaha, more so for the hardware, because DW makes some awesome drums. So.
Oh yeah. I love them, and I'm partial to them, and you really can't offend me, so it's all good, man. Just tell me what you want, brother. I love Yamaha too. I mean, honestly, there aren't a lot of bad drum companies out there. I mean, I used Tama for 10, 12 years before I switched to Drum Workshop. And, Tama was wonderful. And Pearl and Yamaha. I got a Pearl export kit that the kick is just unbelievable. The boom on that thing, it's like a cannon. I mean, and I think Yamaha, it's top of the line as well. I've owned a couple of Yamahas too, and I had a Stage Custom, and it's a gorgeous kit. Big drums. That's what I remember about the Yamaha drums, is they make some big tom-toms. Those things are booming.
Well, that's because my kit, when I bought it, see, my biggest influence, or one of them, was Tommy Aldridge. And he had that black Yamaha recording kit when he was on the Bark at the Moon tour. It's when he started playing Yamaha. And I 16 years old in high school, I go, Mom and Dad, that's what I want. I want that set. And that's exactly what I got. So I got, 24-inch kicks, and, originally it was a 14, 15, 16, 18 toms.
Yeah.
About 5 years ago, I picked up a 12 on eBay for like $400. So now I go 12, 14 instead of 14, 15.
Mm-hmm.
I made it a little smaller, but the thing I didn't get was the snare drum that goes with it, which I'm kicking myself. I mean, I can find them on eBay if I want, but they had a 14 by 8-inch snare that went with it, and I would love that drum. I should probably add it to the collection. But
it sounds like an amazing drum. So speaking of drums, now, how do you like to actually tune them? I had a huge debate with a student of mine. To me, tuning is a personal preference thing, and it's the way you want the kit to sound. My DW drums have the key inside the drum on the stamp, so you kind of know where they have their sweet spot. I think every drum has their sweet spot and has their point to where it just sounds amazing. There's a lot of great head companies out there as well, and things like that, so I'm not downing any head companies, but it's all in the way you tune them, and it's all in the way you like like them to really sound. So can you touch on a few tuning tips with some of the listeners? I mean, I got a bunch of people on Facebook Live right now, and welcome, guys. Thank you all for logging on. I really appreciate that, and thanking everybody who's actually on the webinar call too. And just a quick side note: if anybody has any questions for Rob, you can feel free to type in a question. You can type in a question on the webinar page itself, and then Rob would answer your questions too. And don't forget, we got a huge giveaway coming up at the end, so try to stay logged on and tuned in for that as well. But to get back to my question, Rob, as far as tuning goes, what are your preferences on tuning? How do you go about tuning your drums?
Okay, well, I mean, generically speaking, of course, you tune your drums based on the gig you have, okay? So the drums that I use for Lou are the exact same drums that I have, because they're more or less the exact same drums that were used at the time. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. To play this gig with Lou, I'm not going to have a 6, 8, 10, toon, toon, toon. You know what I mean? Those aren't the drums that they used, and it wouldn't really sound authentic. So that being said, I try to tune them to that sound. You know what I mean? To the sound that I'm trying to recreate. The only thing that you know, the devil and the angel on either side of me fights is the snare drum sound, because, you know, if you listen to the early Foreigner records, at least the first 3, it's a little, I wouldn't say ringy sound, but by the time you get to Foreigner 4, it's like a dead 80s, you know what I mean? Yeah. And I hate that sound. That sound is not me. So what I decided to do is I tune my snare drum. My favorite snare sound to this day is the Bonham live sound, where you hit that and it's a little bit of that toonk sound, and his son Jason still plays that way. Yeah. Brian Tichy is another real good drummer that tunes like that. You know, that's the sound I like. And that's the sound Dennis Elliott kind of had live with Four in the earlier days. So at least I'm sort of feeling a little authentic because it's along those lines. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The toms, I kind of, you know, I don't tune them too high because, again, the sounds for those days were kind of a big, dead sound. Now, I don't deaden the heck out of my drums. That's the only thing I don't do, because I like the drum to ring. I want to kind of hear what the drum sounds like.
Sure.
But I tune them a little lower. I try to have enough space between the 12 and the 14 to hear a difference. You know, some people tune like a fourth in between. If I have enough time, which isn't always the case, I spend time trying to do a little more fine-tuned tuning. You know what I mean? Sometimes you don't get the time. Sometimes I get brand new heads, and I've got to stretch the heck out of those heads and then try to find time to tune the drums before everybody's showing up going, the typical drummer, he's still screwing around. You know what I mean? Yeah. Right. But long story short, so, you know, snare drum tuned to like a livelier little ringer, put a drum tack on there sometimes, JC. You know, and then my 12 and my 14, I tune them up enough to give that a little bit of a tone, a little bit of a ring, but I don't want it too tony, too ringy, because that's not what that music calls for. Mm-hmm. The kick drum, again, you know, sometimes in the past I've tuned the kick drum up, the batter head a little tighter, just to get a little more bounce off the head. But again, for this gig, a little deader, because that's what it calls for. And then recently I've kind of compromised and gone to a second snare over to my left that I detune and deaden the heck out of that, and I use it for those Foreigner 4 songs like Urgent or, you know, Waiting for a Girl Like You, you know, the big ballad that has that big, you know. And I tell Sonny, our sound guy, you know, just this is the sound. It's got to sound big, fat, dead, put a little reverb on it, you know.
Yeah.
So that's the short version, anyways.
Cool. Now speaking of the front of house guy, does he ever say, "Oh man, I really don't like the way this sounds," or I like the way that sounds? Because you don't have a tech, right, on the road with you guys. So, you know, when I was on the Bob Dylan tour and I was tuning, there were some days where myself and the front of house guy just didn't agree on what he was hearing as opposed to what I was hearing up on stage. Yeah. So, I mean, do you ever have that happen ever on the road, or, you know, have a like, I can't get this thing to sound right, or you know, it sounds amazing, or how does that usually go?
Well, there's a couple things. First of all, every once in a while, because all the drum sets are backline, once in a blue moon, I get a drum set that just ain't great, and you try to make the most out of it. And he'll sit there and tell me it sounds like you know what out front. Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, I know. do what I can. Then, most of the time, I get brand new heads, but sometimes I'll get a kit where the heads have been kind of beat on. As well as I know it's tough to get a good sound of a head that's been beat on, but
sure.
What are you going to do?
And there's dimples all over it.
Yeah. And then, most of the time I get brand new heads, which is what I asked for and what I want. But depending on how much time, you got to stretch the head. Then you got to tune it. And as well as I do, you got to beat on it for a while before it starts staying where you want it to go.
Right.
And sometimes I'm fighting, hey, we're running short on time, blah, blah, blah. So it's a big combination of all that stuff. Once in a while I sit there going, I'm not hearing it on this drum or I'm not hearing it on that drum. I do my best. It's if I could get there hours earlier and really spend time tuning, I'd probably run into less issues with that. But you learn on the fly, and you have to tune throughout the show. I don't know about many other drummers, especially my snare drum. That detunes like crazy, like every other song, which is funny because they're looking at me. I grab the key, I grab my water, and I'm detuning the 3 lugs right close to me to get the snare drum back up. And everybody's like, "Come on!" I'm like, "Okay," and
yeah,
that's fun. But every once in a while, you run into stuff. It depends on the room, depends on the PA.
Sure.
Is what it is.
Now, you know what else it is, what it is, speaking of that, there's things that happen on the road, too. Now, you posted a video on your YouTube page, which is awesome, of all the little things that could go wrong while you're playing if you hit a cymbal on a stand and the stand pops over or whatever. Now, you not having a tech as well, you have to deal with that problem and play and sing and do whatever the hell else you're doing up on the stage. But it's got to be tough at times because you're like, oh my God, this stand's about to fall over. What do I do about that? So that's another thing that you got to worry about as well, is having things go wrong while you're playing.
But I'll tell you what, it's amazing because I got a nice big wrench, and I go around that entire drum set, and I tighten the shit out of that. I tighten it so hard, I'm afraid the backline guy's going to sit there and go, hey, don't ruin my hardware, you know what I mean? But, you're thinking, of course, the last thing you want is any gear to go haywire on you. And so the video you're referring to, which is on my YouTube channel, I decided, there's too many funny, goofy. It wasn't funny at the time, but it's funny now.
Yeah.
I record all these shows. I got a ton of bloopers I can put together, and I did that video. So that's on there, but, and then there's other things that go wrong. And the thing is, the more you play, the more over years, the more things go wrong. So after a while, you develop a skill to keep being able to go and fix something. Like if you watch that video, my hi-hat started to get sloshy a couple times. I had to reach in and tighten up the hi-hat clutch, put a stick under my arm and still, you got to do what you got to do. And then there's other disasters. I'll show you. There's a couple other ones real quick. So one of the last gigs we did, any drive show we do, we have the jukebox, the original Foreigner jukebox that inflates during Jukebox Hero. And in sound check, our stage guy, Bob, said, don't leave your camera where it is, which is right behind me. He goes, the thing inflates, it might knock your camera over. All right, I'll move it. So the whole night goes by, we get to Jukebox Hero, we start off the song. It's just a kick drum, going on 4s. All of a sudden, I hear to my right, crash. What the hell is that? I look, and my far crash cymbal has been taken out by the jukebox. So, and I see Bob scrambling on the floor, put the cymbal back up. And I, as soon as he was there and put it up, I knew what happened. It was, his fault. Boom, I weld the cymbal right in his face. I was like, you son of a bitch. I'm looking around and I'm like, you got to be kidding me.
I love it. It's the things that you don't count on, that you just, whatever. Every show, I'm sure, has something. It's a little crazy.
Yeah.
But, I was speaking to Donnie Marple, who actually plays for an artist named Lee Bryce. And I got to tell this story because it made me think of it. And he had a funny story, which I'm gonna have you start thinking about it now, because you're gonna tell me the funniest thing or most embarrassing thing that has ever happened to you up on stage. But Donnie was playing at Heinz Field in Pittsburgh. It was him and the string player next to him. And the string player went to go take a sip of his drink, and there was a bug in it. And he realized there was a bug in it. He turned and spit his drink out right in Donnie's face, like directly in his face. And only the two of them knew about that and knew that happened, and they were both laughing their asses off up on the stage because Donnie couldn't believe he just spit all his drink right on him. And, there was 30,000 people out in the crowd, and he goes, my God, that was probably the most embarrassing and most funny thing that's ever happened to me up on the stage. So
it's happened to all of us. I could give you two really funny ones, but the funny thing is, well, that was funny at the time in a way, but usually it's funny later. You know what I mean? It was a tragedy plus time equals comedy, is the saying. And I remember one time, we were playing a song, and we used a click track, and so I think it was Blue Morning. We started playing the song, and then I leaned forward or backward on my seat, and all of a sudden I lost my in-ears, gone. And so everybody else is playing, and nobody's reacting, so I knew it was just me.
Yeah.
So I'm looking around. I'm looking over at our monitor guy. I'm trying to get his attention. I'm like, he's like, I'm like, right? So they're coming up behind me, trying to fix me. Look at what's going on, right? Turns out they got me back on with like a minute in the song. What had happened was, when I moved my rear end on my seat because my cord was a little long, I unplugged myself from my pack, right? So they're figuring out what's going on. They're like, "Oh, he's unplugged." They plugged me back in. Now, little plug for myself. I missed probably 2 minutes of the song, and when it came back on, I was still dead nuts on the click track. So,
hey, nice.
I'll have to give myself a little bit of credit there. But speaking of click track, we did a show, the one before I saw you, at Batavia. We played in the Chicago area, and it was so hot. Something was going wrong with the laptop. Right after my drum solo, we start Dirty White Boy, right? And so Dirty White Boy's like, up this tempo. So I'm done tuning up my drums, and he's looking, Jeff, our keyboard player's looking at me like, yeah, stop tuning. I need to start the song, the usual thing. All of a sudden, instead of hearing a click going like this, I hear this.
Oh, no.
I'm going, what song are we playing,
Wrong
right?
song.
So I learned, because this happened a couple times when I misread the set list. Best thing I can tell anybody, if you're doing what I'm doing, playing to a click, just count 4 and hit a crash, and then listen to whatever they start to play, and then join in. You know what I mean? If you count to 4 and hit the crash, at least that buys you like a second, right? Well, they started Dirty White Boy, but nothing changed. The click's still slow, so I'm still playing slow, and everybody's looking at me like I'm the jerk. And I'm like, what am I supposed to do? I'm playing to the click track. So anyways, we shut it off, and Lou's like this, and he's looking at me, and I'm like, I know, it's not me. Everybody's looking at me, so. But somebody caught it on video and put it up on Facebook like the next day, that song.
Of course.
And I'm like, oh, come on. Of all the songs to put on Facebook, you got to put that on there.
Yeah, right. Of course, because people love drama, and, that's just the way it goes. And unfortunately, it was at your expense.
Yeah. So I got that on video, too. So someday that'll be on the next blooper reel. You can see Lou in front of me going.
Yeah, he's like, come on. Drummer. Let's go. Cool. Well, I do have a question that popped in for you.
Yeah.
Hi, Rob. Love all the real-life experiences you're sharing with us. By the way, this is from Scott. Just curious, do you wear in-ear monitors when playing live, or do you just play without? ? Which we know you do now. How hard was it to learn to play live using headphones?
Well, the good news is I've always played with a click track throughout time, so I didn't have to adjust to a click in my ear. As far as the in-ears go, a little bit. At first I started with just some earbuds. I wasn't going to go blow a lot of money on in-ears until I knew I liked them. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I bought a pair of earbuds based on what our monitor guy had suggested. And what I would do is have one ear in, and I'd leave my left ear with nothing, because I want to hear the live sound of the drums. And that worked for me for the first year I was in the band. But one gig we had the next year, it just didn't sound good with the earbuds. It was so frustrating. I'm like, you know what? It's worth it. I'm gonna take the plunge. Sure. And so I use JH Audio, Jerry Harvey Audio in-ears. They're Roxanne model. Little plug for those guys. They're awesome. They're They sound great. Sometimes, you start to, I don't know if the word is hurt a little bit, but, just having something shoved in your ear for a long period of time starts get a little annoying, but
definitely
they sound amazing.
Definitely, man. Now, did you have the dual drivers or triple drivers? Do you remember?
Oh, there's like 12 drivers in each on these.
Yeah, that's crazy. Wow.
Yeah, these weren't cheap.
yeah, I got to tell you, it's just the drivers that drive up the price, right? That drives up the price. But mine used to hurt me too. If I had them in for too long, I'm just like, my ear was aching. You can't hear anything with those in. You hear nothing. I like the live sound of the drums too, so sometimes you'll have one hanging over or hanging down or whatever, just so you can hear a little bit. But I definitely agree with you there. But playing to a click live, you guys do that, right?
Yeah, mainly because, there's two reasons, and it's not like we rely on a click like a lot of bands. They can't go out and play a show without a computer because half the show's on the computer, and that's not us. But the reason we use the click is two reasons. Number one, Jeff puts in a couple little extra keyboard parts in, just to be faithful to the original. I mean, he's amazing. That guy's he's an amazing keyboard player. And so to be as faithful as you can, there's a couple extra keyboard parts in certain songs. And before I joined the band, just for like in throw and go situations, when every once in a while you just got to get on stage with no sound check and you go, and you're competing with a legacy of Foreigner, you're competing with other bands, you're competing with yourself. So what they decided to do is just put a little background vocal help on some tracks, but it's not a crutch. You know what I mean? So if you're in a throw and go and you got to get on stage and just start going, at least the sound guy can turn that on a little bit until he mixes everybody in,
Sure.
So do I like playing to a click? No, because those songs weren't recorded to a click. Those songs kind of ebb and flow. I mean, we're not machines, and I would prefer to play it live with a little bit of feeling in it. And I find myself sometimes, at least in the beginning, fighting a click because there's certain parts of the songs where you just want to move with it.
Sure.
I don't find that anymore. Maybe maybe that's a bad thing because maybe I'm just getting used to playing it rigidly with a click track. But it is what it is. And like the time at Malfunction that I was just talking about a little while ago, other than that, if something goes where we have to turn it off, which happens sometimes. Like Lou will come in sometimes differently in Jukebox Hero. Well, if he comes in any other time, then what generally is the case, we got to turn it off. And that's okay, because it actually feels better because we're doing it ourselves.
Right. Yeah, definitely. I mean, now, do all the guys in the band, like the guitar players and everybody, has the same click, or it's just you?
No, it's just me.
Yeah. Okay. So they all just follow you.
What happens is I'll get a 4 count in my ear, then I'll click off a 4 count to them, and then they're just playing to me. Right.
Cool. I just actually tried that at a gig, and the guys in my band, like the guitar players, were trying to push it. They have a lot of energy, and then they were ahead of the click, they were behind the click, and I have this tempo app on my phone that I had my ears connected to, and I had to turn it off a couple times, man, because they just, when you're not used to it, and not, and we practiced with it just fine, but once we got to the live gig and all the energy was there, it was just like, I just can't, I can't. So, you know what I mean? So I just used it for my 4 count when I came in, and then I just, I kept it from there. But it's tough.
A lot of guys do that.
Yeah.
We did, our last show we did with the Loverboy, one of the festivals we did in Florida, and I was talking to him, and he does what a lot of guys do and what you just said. They'll just use it to get the count for the song, and then off they go without it, which is a really good idea. He goes, and he was telling me, a lot of times we'll go from a faster song, like Working for the Weekend, and then they'll go to like When It's Over or something, and it's slower. And he goes, I use it for that purpose, because if my heart and my tempo is still going like this after that last song, my inclination is going to start the slower song at least faster than it should be.
Right.
And he goes, so it works out great because I'm done with that. It gives me the correct tempo, whether I'm feeling this or not. I know what the right tempo is.
Sure, sure, definitely. All right, so we talked about drums a little bit. We talked about your heads and tuning and things like that. Now let's talk about cymbals. I know you use huge cymbals. I use one 18-inch, and that's like my largest. So it could be your smallest. So I'm not sure. Tell us about the cymbals that you use, why you use them, and what sizes.
Okay. Well, I'm not endorsed by a specific company, so it's a mixture of mainly Zildjian and Sabian, and believe it or not, my ride is an Istanbul ride. It's
I remember that.
Yeah, it's a 24-inch, so it's like you said, it's all big stuff. But again, that's kind of what was played in the era. Everybody had big stuff, you know.
Mm-hmm.
That's what kind of the gig warrants now. You know, if it wanted an 8-inch tom and a 16-inch crash, that's what I would be playing. But this is what it calls for. And that's what my stuff was anyways, because that's the era I come from. It's the kind of music I like. So I didn't have to go buy new stuff for this gig. It just happened to fit perfectly for what the music calls for. So I've got a couple 18-inch Zildjian crashes in the front. I got a couple of 19-inch Sabians to the rear. My China is a Sabian Holy China, which is, I think, a 19-inch, which is China number 2 since I've been in this band. I've probably broken 5 or 6 cymbals since I've been in the band, so replace. I've got, what do I got? 3 splashes, which are all Sabian splashes. I got an 8, a 10, and a 12 in the middle, and 14-inch hi-hats, which are Sabian. They were called sizzle hats. I've had them, believe it or not, for 30 years. I haven't broken the hi-hat. And they have holes in the bottom where they used to have rivets.
Yeah.
And it made a nice sizzle sound. In 30 years of having them, they've lost the rivets, but I still love the way they sound.
Sure.
And then the 24-inch Istanbul ride cymbal, which really has a loud ting to it, you know. Again, the big stuff for the big sound for the gig. So.
And it had a nice bell on that thing, if I remember that right. The bell was real nice on that Istanbul. So, I mean, all great cymbals. You know, you can't go wrong with any of those. So those are awesome. Very cool.
Yeah.
And sticks. What sticks do you use?
I'm endorsed by Regal Tip, which is right in your backyard, Niagara Falls.
Mm-hmm.
And I use their 2BX, which are just a little bit bigger than the 2Bs. And, you know, I've always played 2Bs. Again, to get the big sound, big sticks give you a big sound. You know what I mean? If I was to use some jazz sticks, I wouldn't have the sound, you know?
Sure, definitely. And 2Bs are like marching sticks or Lincoln logs or whatever you want to tell. Those things
Baseball
are huge. Bats. They are huge, absolutely huge. And I'm a smaller guy, and trying to hold those bad boys in my hand, it was almost like this. It was just like, oh my gosh, those things were absolutely huge. And I'm a 5A wood tip guy for you know, and I've been using those for years. Holding a different drumstick in your hand is like night and day, especially yours, Rob, because they were humongous. And to try to swing those bad boys around the kids, I mean, it would take a lot of practice and a lot of getting used to. That's for sure.
My arms get tired a little bit, but I tell you what, here's a tip for everybody. I'll try to make it short. If you find something that works for you, especially sticks, stick with it, okay? Because I tell you what, there's been times. And I know people who do this. Oh, I got to try this, and I got to try that. And they're trying everything, and I got to buy this, and I got to have the latest that. And then, you know, after spending all this money, they end up back with the stuff they liked anyways, you know, and that's cool, I guess. Mm-hmm. But to me, I've been playing for almost 43 years. I eat the same food because I know I like it, and I play the same stuff because I know I like it. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And a real short story, I played a club gig years ago, and they didn't have my 2B, so I bought something close. The guy's like, try these. I was in a pinch. I had to use them. They were a little longer, a little heavier. So halfway through the night, it was just like two-hour sets we were playing. My wrist was hurting. And I'm like, all right, well, I've been playing for 30 years. It's catching up to me. You know, I'm getting carpal tunnel. I'm getting something. It got so bad I could barely drum, so I switched to traditional grip, which I hadn't played in years.
Yeah.
Well, that got rid of the pain in my wrist, but soon I started getting a blister right here from the traditional grip because I haven't played like that in a long time.
Sure.
That hurt so bad, I went back to match grip until that pain hurt. So I was going back and forth. What did I learn? I learned it wasn't me, it was the sticks.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like, all right, the hell with experimenting with sticks. I'm sticking with what I know.
Yeah, definitely. Now speaking of like calluses and things like that, I've had my hands completely ripped apart playing shows, or you hit a cymbal, or your knuckle hits the rim of the snare drum or whatever. I've had all that crap happen, and your blood everywhere. It's just craziness. What do you do to try to prevent the calluses? Have you ever worn gloves? Have you ever adjusted your grip any other way? Or
other than that grip thing I just told you about, back in like the late 80s, I joined a band that played up and down the East Coast, and I wasn't used to playing every night of the week at that point, and I had calluses on my hands. But my hands were a hamburger within like 3 days, and it got so bad I couldn't tie my own shoes.
Yeah.
And so I ended up having to Band-Aid up the heck out of my hands. I went and bought golf gloves just to keep playing, because we played literally like 6 nights a week.
Yeah.
So after that happened, eventually my hands got as hard as a rock, and I built up those calluses. So with Lou, my energy's up more. We're playing bigger places. I'm more excited. It's a bigger gig. I'm playing harder. I started getting blisters again. And I discovered, and I don't remember where I discovered it, but there's something that you can get that's called liquid bandage, right? So after ripping up my hands a couple times, I put the liquid bandage on my hand, which stings like hell for the first 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, maybe I could deal with this. And then one day I thought, well, why don't I put that on first before I play? So I got that stuff, and ever since that epiphany, I put it on all my fingers where I would normally get blisters, and I don't get blisters anymore. You know what I mean? That stuff, as long as I don't put too much on it. If I put too much on, it becomes slippery.
Yeah.
But I should get an endorsement from Band-Aid or something if you're out there listening. I put it on all my fingers, and all the guys in the dressing room complain. They banished me to another room because it stinks, and I'm sitting there slopping it on.
That's too funny.
I tell you what, man, that works. You will not get a blister.
I won't. I'm gonna have to get some for sure, because I know I got a few gigs coming up. So yeah, I would love. I mean, I get it on my thumb the most, and on my index finger. Those are my two spots, right on my fulcrum. Where I'm holding the stick. But those are for bowlers too. It's called New Skin or something like that for bowlers or whatever. Yeah, it's good stuff. Cool, nice. That's a great tip. That's a great tip, and in fact, I may try to use that. So thank you for that. So biggest and best performance or best venue, I'm sorry, that you've ever played.
Well, the biggest. Well, that's a tough question. I mean, the first big gig I ever played was the Wacken Open Air Festival in Germany, and if people out there have never heard of it, go look it up. I mean, people travel from all over the world to go to this festival. It's like 3 days. It's always the first weekend in August. And they have 4 stages, and we were playing with Dee Snider from Twisted Sister. All these huge, big metal gods play there. And, that was a real eye-opening experience. We played at 1 a.m, German time, and the crowd was still there. I mean, there's I don't know how many thousands of people go to this thing. So that was the first, so that was kind of special. But we've done some cool stuff with Lou. The last gig we just played in Florida, the Riptide Fest with Casey and the Sunshine Band and Loverboy and a bunch of other bands that you never would think would be a good pairing.
Yeah.
That was kind of fun. We played the Boardwalk in Santa Cruz, right on the beach, and I'm right across from me is the Boardwalk and the roller coaster, and I'm watching people ride the roller coaster, and I'm playing, and that was kind of cool. And
that is really cool.
Yeah, I'm sitting there going, this is awesome. There's a couple pictures if people hunt my Facebook page, go back far enough, you can see that. And
cool.
Probably the first gig I did with Lou at the Saban Theater in Los Angeles, which is one of those really old theaters. I love playing those old theaters that seat about 2,000 people with all the, the engravings and decorations and stuff in the ceilings, and those are beautiful. I love playing all those. So.
Sure, definitely, very, 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 very cool. All right, if anybody has any questions, you can ask on Facebook Live. You can ask in the room here. Here's another one. As soon as I say it, this is from Scott again. Rob, I see an Ozzy book on your bookshelf. I saw that too. What is your favorite book in your collection? You got a lot of books back there, man.
Oh yeah, yeah. we won't go into that. Yeah, I don't have a favorite. Most everything over on this side is all rock stuff, and there's too many good ones. I mean, if we stick to Ozzy, because that's what he talked about, I'll tell you what's a good one. If I can find it here. Where is it? I can't find it, of course. There's one that was written by Bob Daisley that's really good. It's called For Fact's Sake.
Huh.
This is expensive. You have to buy it from England. It's like $30 and $30 to ship.
Yeah.
Okay. If I had to pick one good one, get that book. Bob,
Nice.
You're welcome.
Nice.
So there you go.
So
That's
we've
one
just
good
sold a few books for Bob. Awesome. Very cool. Well, I know, speaking of getting things and doing things, the reason why I do this website and the reason why this whole thing is ever evolved or even came about is for giving. I want to try to help as many drummers as I can. I'm really passionate about that. I've been drumming for 35 years, and I absolutely love it. I want to try to help as many people as I can. I try to give as much as I can give, and part of the reason, in fact, the main reason why I wanted to do this site was to just give to more people. So, that being said, Rob, we have a giveaway, and let's talk about the goodies that we're going to give away today. And I already have the name picked. I picked it at pretty much towards the beginning. So tell us what you got and who the lucky winner, or actually what the lucky winner is going to be getting tonight.
Oh, geez, I wish I was more prepared for that. Okay, well, I happen to have one of my beat-up sticks here. So we got a pair of my Regal Tip 2BXs, which I've kind of worn and whittled away quite well here, but they actually have my signature underneath the tape. I actually use hockey tape for a better grip. So if you're wondering what that is, it's hockey tape. So a pair of these. We've got a drum head that I've signed as well, and I'll just make it out to whoever the name is there. And then we've got a 1 hour Skype lesson with me.
Awesome.
So we'll work that out where we'll sit down and talk some drums and play some drums with whoever the winner is and have some fun. So.
I love it. It's a great gift, and it's a great giveaway. And, man, I got to tell you, the guy who's been asking questions, Scotty B., you are the winner tonight of the great package that Rob has given away. So congratulations to you, Scott. And welcome to the group, welcome to the show, and what a great way for you to be welcomed in than to win this amazing giveaway prize tonight on Kick It With Johnny Live. And I really, really appreciate your time, Rob. Thank you so much for at least being on the show for the second time. Sure. I really appreciate you, and what great conversation. And I honestly am excited to chat with you again. And we got to definitely keep in close touch. And I think it's going to be. I think you got a bright future and a lot of cool things coming up ahead. And I wish you the very best. I know you're going to do great.
Thanks for having me on, Johnny. I appreciate that, and had a great time. And we'll do it again soon, I hope. So.
Awesome. I want to say, everybody, thank you so much for joining me on Facebook Live. Rob, if you want to give a little wave to all the people watching on Facebook Live.
Hey, you know what? Real quick?
Sure.
Can I say one thing real quick?
Absolutely.
I'd like to just to give a quick mention to my the companies that endorse me. If I
sure.
may do that.
Absolutely. Yes.
I got to say thank you very much to our good friend J.C. Clifford from
JC.
Drum Tax. Drum Tax are little round thingies you stick on your drum heads that actually do a great job of controlling the ring of the drums versus other methods. So big shout out to Drum Tax. JH Audio I use for my in-ears. Thank you to those guys. Regal Tip for my sticks, of course, as we mentioned. And I started using a new product called K-Brakes, which are really kind of neat, where they kind of make your stuff stay where it's supposed to stay instead of sliding on the stage and things like that. So those are kind of neat. And a quick shout out to my website. You can check me out at www.robmount.com, and all my links to social media and stuff are on there. So
very cool.
Thanks to you, and thanks to my wife Louise and my kids and my parents for buying my drums and all that kind of fun stuff.
I love it. I love it. So I hope all you guys have a great night. Thanks for tuning in. Next month, I'll be announcing our next guest probably in the next week or so. So we're going to be doing this once a month, but we're going to have some really amazing guests like Rob and great giveaways. So I hope that everybody tunes in with me again next month on Kick It with Johnny Live. And I want to wish you guys all a great night. Thank you so much for joining us. God bless you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Just going to finish.